At Dot and Company, we believe that all agencies deserve amazing account managers and that all of those account managers deserve to be supported, encouraged, and loved on. That's why we started CAM Community, a membership only for account managers. And inside, you'll gain access to the exact training we use to train our own client facing account managers, but also access to all of our SOPs, processes, and live trainings on a variety of topics. If you're an account manager, this is the place you've been waiting for. Learn more at dotandcompany.co/CAM community.
Stomach the 3 months of pain. Realize, yes, mistakes are going to be made, but you're building a business, not a job.
Welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, brought to you by Dot and Company. Whether you're a virtual assistant, an agency owner, or a client-facing account manager, we all deal with clients. Lucky for you, client management is what we do best. Now, let's dig in, chat cam life, and have some fun along the way. Cheers to happy clients.
Well, welcome to the Happy Clients Podcast, Ashton. Super pumped to have you here. It's been a while trying to get you on the show, so we're excited.
It's been a minute. Yeah, I appreciate the flexibility. Good to be here.
Yeah, excited. So you and I met a few months ago, and I was very intrigued by your story of how you started as a media buyer, I believe, and then now you own this massive agency, Bad. So give us kind of the lowdown. How did you get here?
Oh man, I will skip over the long version of the story because essentially I started in marketing when I was 16, and but then several years later I found myself in Seattle and I was working at a digital marketing agency there, and it started as just like a digital marketing manager, and then moved eventually to a company called Traffic and Funnels, which was like a consulting firm. I started there as an intern, then as a copywriter, then a project manager, and then they realized I could do media buying, so I started there. And then grew my way in that company to be their director of advertising. And then in 2020, I started my agency, Heman Media. And then we went from 0 to about 11 million in 3 years. And then in 2023, merged with another agency called For Media and became Bad Marketing, which is what we are today. And right now we have about 200 employees and offices in Nashville, Atlanta, Denver, and London, and do pretty much everything you can think of in digital marketing.
Unreal. It's rare to actually see agencies grow to be the size that you guys are at. There's not a whole lot of agencies who are at your level, right? So it's cool to kind of see that journey. And it sounds like you just started from the beginning and you knew enough to be dangerous to grow to your own massive agency, which is super cool. What made you want to merge? Like, at what point were you like, this makes more sense to be?
Yeah. So it was a few different things. Like one, I think it was, when we thought about long-term vision of what we wanted to build, my vision was always building like a titan of an agency. And then longer term of like, okay, what does exits look like? What do evaluations look like? But then also when just looking at, I think what is needed in today's world of being great in digital marketing for any agency, on our end in Heman, my agency, we were really well known for media buying, copywriting, direct response, building funnels, things like that. And For Media was really well known for content production, email. And so in my head, it was like the future of media buying. It's becoming so important. They have great creative. And it was like, I either build that myself, or we find someone that, in my opinion, was already at the top of their game in the industry for what they did. They needed the same thing. They needed media buying. They needed direct response. And we were at the top of our field on our side. So it was kind of one of those things where, hey, you can fight to build it yourself. And we had both been doing that, or we just come together and you have, it's better to have a piece of watermelon than the whole of a grape. And so that was kind of the plan.
Nice. And so obviously people probably ask, how did that transition go, merging two cultures and two teams?
Yeah, I think we were pretty unique in our situation because my business partner, Eddie, and I, we had already been partners in an agency mastermind. We'd started Agency Founders 3 years prior. And so we had already kind of been business partners there and got to see how each other worked. Our teams obviously worked together to put those events on. And so we got to see a lot of that. But then also, because they were so good at content, because we were so good at the media buying, we'd had several clients that we'd worked together on because they would hire them for content. We would be running the ads. And so our teams would already have to cooperate and work together to get those things done. And so we could see a lot of those similarities and synergies between us already. And so, we kind of had like a 3-year vetting process.
Mm, that's sweet. But I feel like that's rare too, to have that level of trust with somebody before you go into business with them. Because I think a lot of people are nervous to merge and
Yeah.
to, because it's like, I think this is going to work out, but it sounds like you already knew, like you've worked with him and his clients and stuff. So,
Well, and even to that point, right, before we even brought it to the boards on both of the companies, Eddie and I had been vetting each other, for probably about 6 months prior of like, kimono open, I have access to your QuickBooks, you have access to our QuickBooks. We're watching each other over the next 6 months, seeing how the businesses are going. And so, it was really important for us of, yes, we know each other, but let's also from the business side, the money side, let's see how it works. And if we both really do want the best outcome, there's no reason to be private. There's no reason to be secretive. And so being able to do that even before going into a formal diligence process was super important.
wow, that's also rare to be that open and wow, that's sweet. So how's it going? Like, how has it been since you guys merged?
It's good. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
of momentum. The teams are super excited. There's a lot of really cool projects that are going on. But yeah, there's natural things that happen with any merger and acquisition. In the beginning, you're always going to have a few of those employees that just really don't like change or really don't want to
Mhm.
change things around. So that's, something you're always going to deal with. And I think with Eddie and I, the things that we still work on is we're both very big personalities, both big visionaries. But the cool thing is BAT is so large that it almost kind of needs the two visionaries. It almost needs the visionary for product and innovation and driving performance and developing leaders, and it needs the innovator for our brand and for how we look to the public. And so I think we play off of that really well.
That's amazing. So, talk to me a little bit. I know that you guys say that the traditional agency model is broken. So, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I think, if you think about the true traditional agency model, it typically is the agencies are charging based on hourly, and they are operating from pretty standard of you want this much work done and this is how many hours it costs for us to do it, and they charge the client based on that. But realistically in today's world, a lot of the value that agencies bring is not going to be based on time. It's going to be based on skill, data, technology. And so for us, we very much operate in the monthly retainer. We operate with performance incentives and bonuses. And then beyond that, if you think about the true traditional agency world, because I think a lot of people think there's like the internet marketing agency world, and like that's the traditional agency world. It's not. The true traditional agency world is like you think the Madison Avenues and in LA when they're working with really, really big companies. And I would say, realistically speaking, even though BAD is 200 employees, we're relatively small in the actual agency world. But for us, I think there's so much of a focus on digital, whereas the larger agency world is not. They're often really still kind of behind in a lot of ways. And with us, because we're bootstrapped, because we're really young, because we focus on digital, I think it allows us to innovate a lot more than the normal agency world does.
That's a cool perspective. And then let's talk a little bit about client retention because this is a huge topic,
Yeah.
especially on our podcast, because we're here to talk about happy clients. And I feel like a lot of agencies are so focused on like sales, new clients coming in, getting
Yeah.
sales, optimizing the sales process, even optimizing that onboarding process. But how are you ensuring that clients aren't just leaving out the back end as quickly as they're coming in?
Yeah, I think it's two sides. When I first started my agency, I thought it was all results. Get really good results and clients will stay. And so ensuring that not just are they happy, but I think more than anything, what clients look for in the world of business is that, hey, storms are going to come. But when a storm comes or when we're trying to adapt or when we need to pivot, who's the best captain of the ship? And an agency's job is to prove to the client that they are the best captain of the ship, which most of the time this means either A, the clarity in our communication styles and our ability to communicate to the client what we're actually doing, because they're not marketers like us. So how do we communicate what we're doing to them and the impact of what our time and their ad dollars is actually doing? But then also how much can we be proactive in what we're doing? Meaning we're not just talking about week by week or day by day, but how can we get the client to start thinking of their engagement with us this quarter, next quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter? And the more that you can start framing yourselves as a true growth partner, as a partner with them, and not just this, we run your Facebook ads, the more they're going to take it seriously and the longer they're going to retain.
Hmm, that's key. And I always tell our team it's of course it's about, the results and stuff, but you have to deeply understand what's important to that client. You have to understand why they're here, like on a deeper level. And if you don't understand that, you're never going to be able to weather the storm and be the captain of the ship. If you don't know where the ship is going, it's hard to kind of do that. So that's awesome. Um, Talk to me about how you set up your account team. So a lot of people are curious, like in a big agency your size, who's managing the actual communication? Is it the media buyer? Is it the strategist? Is it an account manager? How do you guys set that up?
So it kind of depends on what service they are working with us on, because we have, single service, and then we have what's called full service. It also depends on the industry, because we have a local division, we have an e-commerce division, we have an Amazon division, and an information division. For most of them, though, they're set up in what we call pods. So these pods are like smaller teams within a team that would operate, 4 to 5 different accounts at a time. And so within those pods, the head over the pod itself, depending on the division you're in, let's just call them strategists or senior growth managers. And they are kind of the point person overseeing the pod, organizing the teams, but they're also the point of contact for our clients. But then the project manager is also a contact point with the client as well. But the strategist would focus on anything communication related to strategy, performance, things like that. And the project manager covers more logistics, setting meeting times, making sure action items are displayed to both sides of the team, following up with tasks that were said to be done, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And those strategists, do you generally promote from within or do you hire externally?
Both. As a rule of thumb, we always try to hire from within. But I think even as we've grown, and for a lot of companies, you can run into the sides where you maybe are promoting people before they're ready. And so it's really important that, yes, we're hiring from within. That's where we always look to first. But ultimately, it's who's going to deliver the best results to our clients, who's going to best serve them and realistically serve the team. If you put a leader in a spot where they're not ready, it doesn't just hurt client performance, but it also hurts the team culture and hurts team happiness, which is not good anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And I think we're all guilty of maybe promoting people when it shouldn't happen, or maybe you haven't done the right progression plans and things like
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, you're definitely not an entrepreneur if you've never made that
yeah,
mistake, at least probably like 4 or 5 times.
I know everyone listening is probably like, oh my gosh, like I
Yeah, I've been
literally just
there.
did
I'm doing it right
that.
now. I just did it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I feel you on that. How much are you involved in clients now? So a lot of agency owners will come to us and they're hiring an account manager, but they're like, oh, but this client really loves me, or like, I met this person in my mastermind or whatnot. Are you still involved in client work, or what's your rule of thumb?
Yeah, it for our full service in our info division, that's where I spend a lot of my time, and I would say I still am quite a bit in the weeds on client accounts. Now, I don't do a lot of connecting with the clients themselves. We try as much as we can to keep that barrier separate, but I'm very much involved with some of our higher level accounts behind the scenes with the strategists and organizing with the media buyers. I still meet with media buyers 3 or 4 times a week, meet with strategists one-on-one every week. And so I'm still pretty involved. But that's also because, in our full service department in info, we have clients that can pay us anywhere from 70 to 300,000 a month in bonuses. And so it's high leverage for me as a business owner to be involved there.
I love that. I love that you said it's high leverage, because I think a lot of agency owners don't sit down and say, okay, what is actually something I need to
Right.
be involved with, right? Like they're just talking to clients because it's easy or because the client likes them versus actually working on the account,
Right.
spending their time working actually on getting them results rather than, pleasing the client. So are there times when clients will just come to you and you have to like redirect them?
Yes. But I think we've done it in the beginning. So there's kind of like two frames to this, right? Because there was definitely a time where it was difficult and I needed to transition myself away from being the point of contact for the clients, right? Now it's not so much, because the biggest reason why owners will get pulled into that type of situation is because they were the one who closed the client, and maybe we're
Mm-hmm.
the onboarding or set the strategy with the client. But now we're in a spot where, a client is closed by a sales team, and that's brought to a strategist, and the strategist handles all that. And so they don't even really know I'm existing, right? Outside of the fact that I own the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really important for a while. For me, the key pivotal moment it was in Heman was just very much setting that key standard of I would close the client, And then on the onboarding call, I'm there. And the first thing that we're doing is, hey, I'm introducing you to the team. This is their expertise. This is their experience. We're going around one by one. And then it's like, and I'm going to stop talking and I'm just going to be a pretty face on this call. And I'm here to support. And just a clear passing of the baton of authority.
Yeah.
That's really, really important.
And what did that do for your business once you made that shift? Because most agency owners are too scared to maybe hire an account manager or hire somebody
Yeah.
to replace them in that client facing. Like, was there a pivotal like growth moment when you shifted?
I think so, for sure. If nothing else, I think it just allowed me to make our business better. Like growth, I think we were in a pretty great situation of like growth was never our problem. We always were growing and it was never a struggle to grow. But for me, it was a struggle of how do I make sure the business is becoming better? Because our name is everything. If we don't protect our reputation, if we don't protect our results, I don't develop the leaders they need to be who they need to be, then it will hurt down the road, right? And so I think that was the biggest benefit. And for a lot of leaders, we get so worried and afraid by bringing someone else in. It's like they're not going to do it as good as me, and they're not going to be as happy or can't perform as good as I can. And that is true because you lack the skills to train correctly, or you lack the skills to manage correctly. And so you have to get good at that because you're right. If you don't figure that out, it will hurt and it won't work long term. But what I would say is the pain you'll suffer from the initial 3 months of coaching and training and letting mistakes happen, the pain that you'll gain from that is so much less than you trying to keep pushing and burning yourself out or capping out. And then you just don't like the business or you're still at the same level 3 years from now. And
Mhm.
so, stomach the 3 months of pain, realize, yes, mistakes are going to be made, but you're building a business, not a job.
Ooh, that's a good one. I think so many agency owners are in that job, right? They're like, I'm working 60 hours a week, da da da. And it's like, that's not cool. That
Yeah.
is not the goal. So you need to fix that.
Well, and to be fair, right, like this is probably why there's not that many agencies that are our size, that are in the digital marketing grassroots bootstrap method, is because building a business is really hard. It's
Mhm.
really, really hard. And a lot of us got into this world because we were great marketers, but it doesn't mean we were great operators or great business owners or great leaders. And so we had to learn that skill side if we actually wanted to build a real business, or you just accept the fact that you don't want to be a real business owner. You just want to be a highly paid marketer, and that's okay. But I think a lot of us are maybe trying to build a business because we think that's what we're supposed to do. Like that's the natural next step, or we just think scale, 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 more money. But then we forget that like that requires an entirely different skill set. That is not the skill set that was needed to make 20 grand a month.
Mhm. I totally agree. And I think what you said about most of us are good marketers, and then we go into this thinking like, oh, if I just get 10 more clients, then my gosh, I'm never gonna have to work a day in my life and it's gonna be great. But like those problems just get harder. They're different
Yes.
problems. You're now managing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's sometimes a good gut check to hear from somebody like you who has done it. Like you've grown the business, you have all these employees, and it's not like it's all sunshine and rainbows. It's this just bigger machine that you're running and scaling and learning. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Yeah, it's funny, right? Because in the beginning, it's like I'm a great marketer, so I'm going to just do more marketing and I make more money. And then it's like I look at my day to day now, it's like marketing is very, very little. It's a very small amount of what I do on a day to day basis. And it's great because I've evolved from I'm a marketer to I just want to be an incredible founder, an incredible CEO. But it's like you have to have that identity shift. If you really do want the business I have or something similar. But I think that's probably the mistake that you see a lot of people have is they don't actually decide what they want and they haven't been clear on it. And that's where they start grinding their gears and like, why is it so hard?
Yep, I feel you. So if you were to go back to when you started your own agency and let's say you had your first like 10 clients and you were talking to an agency owner in the same seat, what are like a couple pieces of advice you would give that agency owner?
Okay, so same spot that I was in. Uh, okay, two things. One, um, protect your cash as much as possible. Keep your expenses as low as possible. I think that's one of the things I did really well in the beginning and then struggled with when I got around the like 250 to $300,000 a month mark is that just expenses and hiring and all that stuff just started really compounding fast. But in the beginning, I was very, very good at stacking as much cash as possible. And so I would say do that as much as you can. Don't expect things to just keep coming in well, but also the best businesses don't just have a savings, they have a war chest, right? Like when something goes really bad, can I have a backup plan? The next thing though is that the mistake probably a ton make is that they promote people or put someone in a position they're not supposed to be in way too early. Meaning you're at 50,000 a month and somehow you have a COO or you have a CMO, right? Or you start having these people who are like directors when it's like you don't need a director, you just needed a manager, you just needed a senior level, right? Because when you do that, it just causes so many problems because the business at that level, it's really, really easy to go from 20 to 80K a month. It's really, really easy. There's not that much difference in the business operations to do that, right? From 50 to 100 to 120, again, not that much difference in the business operations. But what you'll see is that the business itself, it is a completely different organism at those levels. So the person you make COO at 50 grand a month is not the COO or the person you would need at 200 grand a month. And because in this industry, you can grow so fast, you can get there in under a year. You can have those quick changes, and your constraints in business or the friction and the stress that you have is going to be from you're up at night going, this person's not doing their job, or they're not taking weight off my shoulders and allowing me to do what I need to do. How do I correct that? And you've got to fire them or they've got to grow. And that's so many of where the problems will come.
Mm-hmm. And so just piggybacking on that, if you have people, let's say you have the first or the second employee with you and you're like, oh my God, this person's amazing. They're my best friend. Like, I think this person is definitely going to be the next director. But then you have someone else maybe that comes up in the company and you're like, whoa, they're like way better, but you feel bad. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So the unfortunate truth is as an owner, and I mean, anyone who's been an owner for any amount of time just knows this, but at some point you just have to eat the shit that you cause. And you have to confess it and be as vulnerable as possible. But what's most important is that the business gets what it needs. Right. And you will find is you will find quickly that when you're honest and when you're vulnerable and you have good reasoning for what you're doing, the people who actually care about the business and the vision versus themselves will be okay with it. Very rarely have I found someone who is not qualified for their position, not doing a good job, and didn't see that conversation coming. Most of the time, they know well before you talk to them that they are not in the right seat. And it's not about moving them out. It's you're not ready for this yet. So I made a mistake, but I really do want you here. Let's find somewhere else for you, or let's work on a plan to get you to where you need to be. Right. And so you just have to have those hard conversations and be okay with it and know that great people will always be fine. Whether they decide to stay with you or they decide to move on, great people will always land on their feet and be great. But you got to give the business what it needs, or else you're not going to be helpful to anyone. And all the impact that you want in the world is not going to be helpful to anyone if the business doesn't survive.
Mm-hmm. I think that is such a helpful reminder for probably a lot of people listening. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ashton. This was really great. I think I learned a lot, and hopefully our listeners learned a lot as well. But where can people learn more about you and follow along on your journey?
Yeah, if you want to, Instagram is probably where I post the most content. Instagram is just at ashton.shanks. Or you can go to our website, badmarketing.com, or search bad marketing on any social media platform and you'll find us.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, and hopefully we get to catch up soon.
Absolutely.
Cheers to happy clients.